Just tell me. Hello, everyone, and welcome. Hello, everyone, and welcome to today's webinar. We're excited to have you join us today for what is sure to be an insightful discussion with our guest, Parker Garlitz. We'll introduce Parker in a minute. My name is Michelle Long, and I'm the Vice President of Client Services here at DOBA. A few quick notes about the webinar today. We are recording the webinar, and we'll send out a link to the video for all attendees in about a week, so be on the lookout for that. If you have any questions as we go along, please enter them in the chat box at the top right of your screen, and we'll get to as many of those within the Q&A at the end of the webinar. If we don't answer your question, we will respond via email after the webinar. For those of you who are unfamiliar with us, DOBA is a unique cloud-based product sourcing platform that simplifies the process of new product discovery and streamlines your product data management. You get direct access to about 200 suppliers and their 2 million products spanning virtually every product category. DOBA's platform allows you to standardize all of your suppliers' connections, so it's easy for you to list products on any of your sales channels. And DOBA also gives you the ability to manage all of your orders in one place. We'll provide links to more information at the end of the webinar, but without further ado, I'd like to introduce our guest today. When it comes to e-commerce and knowing how to market and sell online, very few people have the depth of experience of Parker Garlitz. Parker started his first internet technology systems company in 1990 and has been marketing and selling products successfully online for more than 20 years. He started selling on Amazon back in 2002. Since his start, Parker has successfully created and launched several multi-million-dollar websites, providing everything from ink toner to wheatgrass kits. Parker is a full-stack digital marketing expert, particularly when it comes to e-commerce marketing. He has been the VP of web marketing for multiple prominent companies, helping them grow to hundreds of million dollars in revenue. Parker has traveled all over the world teaching small and medium-sized businesses how to sell successfully online. His areas of expertise are selling on Amazon, eBay, Walmart, and other online marketplaces, product sourcing, conversion rate optimization, social selling, SEO, vertical portal marketing, pay-per-click marketing, permission marketing, comparison shopping portals, and much more. Thank you so much, Parker, for being on our webinar today.
You bet. Glad to be here.
So let's go ahead and get started. I'd like to begin by opening the webinar with a high-level but important question. You've been selling on Amazon since 2002. So can you tell us how selling on this channel has changed over time?
You bet. That's a very big question, and I'll maybe kind of tackle it from a couple of angles because it has changed pretty significantly in terms of being an Amazon merchant. I started as an Amazon merchant in 2002. When Amazon first started, prior to 2002, they had a seller program called Z-Shops. I don't know if anybody was around back then or remembers that, but their Z-Shops approach was basically a way that you could list your products kind of inside of Amazon, but the problem is Amazon never really gave them any visibility, and that Z-Shops model kind of collapsed. But I did have a Z-Shop, and it didn't work. And I think because of that, when they launched their new marketplace program in 2002, they called us and invited us to kind of switch over, which we did. And we started to generate sales immediately. I wouldn't say it was big, but the sales were there. And it took me quite a while to kind of figure out the nuances and the ins and outs of how to sell on Amazon, which I'd done by about 2004. And at that point, things really started to pick up, and Amazon began to be a pretty significant part of our business. Now, back in those days, there was no fulfillment by Amazon. There was no Amazon Prime. So you would list a product, Amazon would sell it, they'd send you a notice, said, hey, you've got an order, and we would box it up and ship it. and then Amazon would handle the transaction and forward our share minus their commission into our bank account, and it was very clean. Well, I'm not exactly sure when Amazon Prime launched, sometime around 2007 or 2008. And the big problem, I think, Amazon Prime wasn't that attractive because Amazon didn't really have that many products that were Prime eligible. So they did, I think, a really concerted push to get merchants to sell through, what's now commonly known as FBA, Fulfillment by Amazon. And, for those who may not be familiar with that program, it's basically instead of you fulfilling the product, Amazon sends you a note saying you got an order, ship it. You ship product directly into Amazon, and Amazon fulfills it for you. Well, Amazon's economies of scale and their shipping, their ability to ship and pick and pack is so efficient that they can ship that product for cheaper than you can do it. So the other issue is that any product that's fulfilled by Amazon is Amazon Prime eligible. So those Amazon customers who are subscribers to the Prime service are getting free shipping on it. So it's really a very attractive model. Well, probably the most significant thing that has changed, certainly in the last 8-9 years, is over time there are such a large percentage of Amazon's buyers that are Prime subscribers that I don't think they're at all interested in making purchases that aren't Prime eligible, meaning they're not shipped for free. So for example, in my business, True Leaf Market, we have somewhere in the neighborhood of several thousand SKUs, 3,000-4,000 SKUs, and I'm still in the process of listing more SKUs on Amazon on a regular basis. Don't even have them all on there. But what's interesting is, out of, let's say right now, probably somewhere in the neighborhood of 3,000 SKUs that I have on Amazon right now, I only have about 160, 170 SKUs that are fulfilled by Amazon versus thousands of SKUs that aren't yet converted to fulfillment by Amazon. It's a very difficult logistical issue to get that many SKUs and manage that many SKUs into FBA. So the revenue that we generate from our FBA listings far surpasses the revenue we generate from the merchant fulfilled listings. And that was not always true, and in fact far from it. But that divide is accelerating, so that now if you list a new product on Amazon and you don't send it into FBA, you are at a hugely competitive disadvantage on the ability for that product to gain traction and visibility, because there are so many Amazon buyers that really don't want to look at a product that's not Prime eligible, meaning it's not fulfilled by FBA. And if it's not fulfilled by FBA, there's again a huge contingent of people who probably aren't going to buy it. And if they're not buying it, your listing for that product is not moving higher in Amazon's search results. Amazon's search engine is driven by a pretty simple calculation, and they're looking at simple relevance to the keyword that somebody searched for, and that triggers whether or not your listing shows up in Amazon's results or not. And then after that, how high you show up in Amazon's results is a function of the sales history. Products that sell well move higher in Amazon search results, and products that sell poorly move lower in Amazon search results. So we're hitting, I think, a critical mass point, if we haven't hit it already, where if you're going to list a product for sale on Amazon and you don't send it into FBA or don't have plans to send it into FBA, it's going to be very hard for you to get traction. And the logistics of managing hundreds or thousands of products into FBA is pretty significant. So that's probably one of the biggest things that's changed in the past 5, 6, 7 years. Now, corollary to that is the Amazon Prime service is quite possibly one of the best deals going anywhere. You get access to all kinds of cloud storage, Amazon Music, you get access to videos on demand, all kinds of stuff, and then everything you buy is shipped for free. And I think that's creating a mindset among at least US-based consumers, where if they have to pay shipping anywhere for even channels outside of Amazon, and even today Amazon represents maybe 20%, on a really good day maybe 25% of our revenues. but it's increasingly more and more difficult, and we're getting more and more of our customers that are buying from other channels like our own websites that are wondering, why shipping is expensive, and what can we do to do free shipping, and it's pushed us into a free shipping model
Mm-hmm.
that I guess probably weren't keen on doing, but we've had to do it. So it's harder to sell without that model these days, and I think Amazon is driving that. So those would probably be the two big things in terms of an answer to that question.
So it's mostly the FBA, the shipping time frames, and the shipping costs that has
Yeah.
changed over time. And just a quick follow-up question: how are you deciding or prioritizing which SKUs you're putting into FBA out of your 4,000 SKUs?
Yeah, so that's a great question, and it's difficult. In the case of our business, not every product that we have pencils on FBA. In other words, by the time you look at FBA's fees and FBA's the per pound shipping fees and some of the other things that they charge, we have a lot of products that don't really work. So, for example, if a product is heavy and inexpensive, it's pretty hard to make that product work through FBA.
Okay.
We're a seed vendor, right? We sell everything from seed and kits for wheatgrass, sprouts, herbs, microgreens. We have a full spread of garden seeds and everything from good old-fashioned packets like you pick up at the hardware store all the way up into pallet quantities of seed. And we sell a lot of seed. A lot of the sizes of seed that we sell won't pencil on FBA because the FBA fees end up being higher than we can sell a product for in the first place. So part of it is the calculation, but the rest of it is, does the product have any traction at all outside of FBA? And if it does, we have to assume that when we send the product into FBA, if we're selling 100 units a month of a product and we send it into FBA, we'll sell 300 or 400 or 500 units a
Mm-hmm.
month just by switching that into FBA. So we're kind of pruning through our own data. The challenge is, we're a manufacturer. We bag, we create all of our products, we create all of our kits, and we have a difficult time keeping up with uh, the insatiable demand that exists on FBA.
Right.
The SKUs that we already have are still growing in terms of their sales volume, and every time we think, okay, it's time to add more SKUs, well, we're going to have to push that off to next week because we've got to, the current work orders for the current builds are so large that we don't have the bandwidth. So it's a good problem to have.
Mhm.
Um,
Well, with the changes that you mentioned with the shipping and the fact that Amazon's Prime service is making it a little bit more difficult for other retailers to stay competitive, what advice would you give retailers who may just be getting started on Amazon as far as
well,
staying competitive?
yeah, great question. Let me circle back to that in just a minute. I want to add one more thing to your prior question about, how Amazon has changed over the years. There's one other thing that's really changed, and that is, and this really, I believe, started in about 2011 or 2012, and that is that I think there began to be a a new business model that some people have tackled or tried to shoehorn into Amazon, and it's a result of FBA. I don't know what you call this business model, but personally, I call them aggregators. And what an aggregator is to me is somebody who runs a business that's 100% FBA only. They don't do any of their own fulfillment. The only stuff they do is FBA, and they are out scouting for products in bulk that they can send into FBA and use that as their sales engine. And as more and more of these aggregators have proliferated, what's ended up happening is on good old-fashioned, the good old-fashioned model that's existed in capitalist countries for the past 3, 4, 500 years, buy low and sell high, is being eroded, I think, by the combination of FBA and aggregators. What the aggregators are trying to do is a volume play instead of a margin play. So I'll give you an example. For 15 years, we sold a product that's a powdered wheatgrass juice that we don't manufacture or didn't manufacture. We sell a lot of our own products and our own brands, but we're more of a seed company than anything else. But wheatgrass has been kind of a theme that we've sold for years and years and years and years and years. And so we wanted to be kind of the one-stop shop for everything wheatgrass. Well, in 2000, 2001, 2002, there were a handful of companies that made a powdered green drink, wheatgrass juice kind of a drink. And one of the biggest and best is a company called Amazing Grass. And we sold their product for years and years and years and years, and sold it on all channels. We sold it on our website, we sell it on eBay, we'd sell it through Amazon, and every way we marketed this, we would sell tons of the stuff. Well, I started to notice about 2011 or 2012, in that range, that our sales of that product were just dropping off very steeply. We were just not selling anywhere near as much of that product line as we had in the past. And as I went out and started to look around what was happening, I was finding that, where in, 2004, 2005, 2006, there were a handful of sellers of that product on Amazon, and those sellers were selling at decent margins. Now, what had happened by 2011 or 12 is the sales price of that product had dropped so low that it literally was a margin so thin that I wasn't willing to sell that product anymore, based on what I know my costs were. And
Mhm.
I had in-column pricing from the manufacturer, not going through distribution, anything like that, right from the manufacturer. I had great prices, and I knew that these sellers that were selling, where I used to would sell it at $14 or $15 for a unit, they were now going for like $8.79. Well, by the time you've got cost of goods, by the time you calculate all of FBA's fees, including your shipping cost to send it into FBA, etc., I mean, by my calculation, the vendor selling that at an $8.79 price point was maybe making somewhere between 10 to 15 cents per unit.
But they were able to do that because of the volume of the
Right.
units they were selling.
Yeah,
Hmm.
and that's again, that's what I call kind of the aggregator model. These aren't mom and pop shops that have half a dozen products. These are very analytically driven organizations that might have a staff of two or three or four people that are doing a combination of purchasing and detailed analytics to figure out exactly where their margins are and how can we sell this product and make sure that we get visibility. We're winning the buy box on Amazon through FBA, and we're making 10 cents or 15 cents or 20 cents a unit, and then doing that, thousands and thousands and thousands of times every day. And these are companies that are managing, a huge number of SKUs. And it's, again, I think there's very small group of people running these aggregators. At least this is my suspicion. And you're looking at companies that are doing a net sales volume of 10 or 20 or 30 or 50 million dollars in a year, but their margins are razor thin, 2%, 3%, 4%.
Hmm.
And that model, that aggregator model that's enabled by FBA and frankly encouraged by FBA is has driven all of the profit out of products that we resell. So even from our beginning, we would manufacture and sell our own products, seeds, kits, all kinds of stuff. And that's still a great business for us, and we've got great margins, and we sell a lot of product. But the business that we had, maybe 30 or 40% of our products from the beginning were somebody else's product, some other manufacturer's product that made sense for us to sell. And our sales of that type of product, the resell product, has evaporated because I'm not willing to go in and play the compete at, 10 cent, 15, 20 cent margin game. They're aggregators who are willing to do that. I'm not, if
So it
that makes
sounds
sense.
like, oh yeah, for sure. So it sounds like having your own brand or branded products are probably the best way or the best strategy to compete with those aggregators. Are there any other tips or any other advice you'd give to the non-aggregators out there to be successful?
Yeah, I'm not, I've not done the aggregator model myself. And again, my temperament isn't such that I think, even endeavor to do that. I have a certain degree of admiration for the aggregators who do it. But again, it's not a game I would play. But yeah, so for the non-aggregators, if you're not a seller on Amazon right now, I think you got to be, right? You can't not sell on Amazon, but there's a couple of pitfalls that I think you've got to watch out for. If you are a reseller of somebody else's product, I don't think that is going to uh, be a long-term strategy that's going to keep you afloat anymore. It used to be that it was great, but these days Amazon has driven the margin out of out of those, commonly resold products. Now, if you have an exclusive with a manufacturer, you're the only seller, that's a different issue. Um, but that's going to be a pretty tough row to hoe. So at the end of the day, I think ultimately the number one Amazon high level strategy that you've got to be looking at is exclusivity, or the ability to have your own brand, whether it's white labeling an existing product so that you've got your own brand and you can maybe do some value adds to distinguish it a little bit, or manufacturing yourself, or having it manufactured, by a manufacturer, maybe out of China, maybe out of Mexico, maybe out of the United States, whatever it might be. You got to control your own brand. We sell a lot on Amazon every day, and if you break down where those sales are coming from, they're virtually all our own products and our own brands, and very, very little that we're selling through somebody else. So that'd be the first thing. I think if you're an online merchant, you definitely want to have a presence on Amazon, but I think you're going to have a very tough time with somebody else's resold product. The other thing I would recommend is a pitfall. If you're not an Amazon seller, you've really got to have your processes, your systems, your fulfillment, your customer service really, really tight. Amazon has very, very high standards. I mean, part of the reason Amazon is they're very customer centric. They care about their customer more so than anybody else. And I think some sellers have made the mistake of thinking that they, the sellers, are Amazon's customers, when in fact Amazon doesn't look at the relationship that way at all. Amazon looks at the end user buyer as the customer, and all Amazon sellers are simply drop ship suppliers. And I've probably trained, in the past 10, 15 years, I've probably trained 200 or 300 companies on how to sell on Amazon. And I always recommend to them, make sure that you're paying very close attention to Amazon's policies, Amazon's performance metrics, you're shipping products on time, you're not, monkeying around and delaying or taking it easy or whatever, that you're very thorough, you provide outstanding customer service, that you keep an eye on Amazon's performance metrics, and you meet or exceed their performance requirements, because Amazon has no compunction about getting rid of one of their suppliers, meaning potentially you. So if you're not in a position where your processes and your warehouse and your systems are tight, where you can ship your product on time, and make sure that your inventory is accurate on Amazon, you're not listing something for sale that you don't have or can't get quickly, then you run the risk of being blacklisted by Amazon. And it does happen, and it's fairly common. Amazon is pruning out weak suppliers in favor of good, strong, reliable suppliers. So before you start selling on Amazon, make sure that you're dialed in and ready to go in terms of your ability to fulfill.
I'm glad that you actually brought that up, because you beat me to my next question, which is, when a retailer should maybe not join Amazon or maybe avoid Amazon. But before we get into that, I did have a follow-up question on what you had just mentioned. When you were saying staying on top of Amazon's requirements and whatnot, let's say we have a retailer that does have some interest in building out a brand for Amazon. I have a couple questions on that. One, would you recommend that they sell the brand exclusively on Amazon or simultaneously on private sites at the same time?
There might be an argument to be made in an occasional case here and there to have a product that's exclusive to Amazon, or a brand that's exclusive to Amazon. But in my case, that's not what we've done. Our brands are for sale through as many channels as we can sell them through, including our own websites and Amazon. So, in effect, we compete against Amazon for the sale of our own products. And while that there's pros and cons to that, my feeling is that Amazon is bringing us visibility that we otherwise wouldn't have.
Mm-hmm.
And again, I would be nervous. I'd be extremely nervous if Amazon was 40, 50, 60, 80% of our revenues. That would be a level of concern that I'd not be comfortable with. So we work very hard to promote our products through lots of other channels, so that we've got a diversified marketing strategy, so that if anything, heaven forbid, ever did happen with Amazon, it wouldn't take us down as a company.
Yeah, you're not putting all your eggs in one basket. When
That's
you're
the right.
building out the assortment within your brand, what tools are you using to stay on top of maybe Amazon trends or?
That's a great question. There's lots of tools out there, and I've used some tools like Seller Cloud. I've used Seller Active, and at the end of the day, there's a lot of other tools, right? There's dozens and dozens and dozens of kind of Amazon seller automation tools. I've not looked at them all. At the end of the day, we manage it with our own in-house kind of homegrown system, which is, we export a lot of data to spreadsheets and do analysis of spreadsheets, and then we're managing things like, listing products and inventory and price changes with a homegrown program because our needs are a little bit different than some of the things that have been available through, some of the automated services, which isn't to say I'm opposed to those automated services. I'm not. They just haven't been a fit for our particular business. So we do it in-house.
Okay, well, thank you, Parker. Your insight on Amazon has definitely been thought-provoking. It's obvious that, a clear and calculated business strategy must be the foundation for any retailer who wants to be successful on Amazon. With that being said, how do you think the Amazon marketplace will continue to evolve?
Well, so that's purely speculative, and I'm just kind of basing it on what I read and what I see. There are some things that are happening. There was an article that came out fairly recently. I can't remember if it was Bloomberg or what it was, but it was basically talking about, kind of the tension that exists between Walmart, which now owns Jet, and Amazon, and kind of what pricing strategies are. And basically, the gist of the article was that Amazon has a strategy for pricing. Now they can only control pricing on products that they sell, right? So you basically have, three different levels of selling on Amazon. You can fulfill by merchant, you can fulfill by Amazon, send products and have them fulfill it, or you can sell directly to Amazon through their vendor central channel. That's never been an approach that I felt comfortable with. A, because you're giving Amazon just a huge amount of margin comparing to selling through FBA or selling through fulfill by merchant. And for some of the merchants some of the big companies that have done that, they're basically ceding price control to Amazon. Well, Amazon's pricing strategy for products that they sell, right, for sale by Amazon, is to be the cheapest out there on a unit cost basis. So if they go out and they find out that Costco, which is a member warehouse, right? You can't just walk in off the street and buy from Costco. You got to be a member. But on a member warehouse at Costco, if they find out that, hey, Costco is selling units in bulk and they're selling, 10 units at a price of $10, where normally the unit would go for $1 each, Amazon says we want to be at a price competitive with Costco even on the single unit. So what you have is you have Amazon really pushing the envelope of pricing, right? And so and again, that's kind of further making it a little more difficult to resell somebody else's product. So definitely keep it out of Amazon's, for sale by Amazon. And Amazon works really hard. We get emails and calls from Amazon on a regular basis asking if we'd be willing to sell our products directly to Amazon for resale. And we've always politely declined that, preferring to go the FBA route or the other. So that's a pressure that exists out there, and I don't know where that's going to land, but I mean, I have to imagine that if I'm an executive at Walmart, I've got to be losing sleep every night, wondering how I'm going to compete against what's coming. If you look at what Amazon is trying to do, and some of this sounds, I mean, it's a pun to say it's pie in the sky, because I don't know if you're familiar with their blimp strategy, right? But theoretically, or at least I've read and heard, Amazon wants to put blimps over major markets and deliver from a blimp warehouse with drones, which means their delivery cost to a third-party delivery is gone. They're now shouldering their own delivery costs, and I imagine their analytics are good enough that they know exactly how many units of a particular, memory stick or a, low, low weight, high dollar units that they can put up over a metro area and drop drones out of a blimp, and you could theoretically place an order on Amazon and have it delivered to you in minutes.
Mm-hmm.
How does anybody compete with that? And where does that drive the marketplace? I don't
Yeah,
know.
there's also been talk about, well, originally everyone was saying Amazon was killing the brick and mortar industry, and now there's talk about Amazon opening brick and mortar stores again. Well, not again, but starting to open stores. Have you heard of that and any news on that?
Yeah, I'm speculating here, right? But I think Amazon's strategy on that, and you got to give them credit. I mean, it's just 17 kinds of genius. But I think Amazon's analytics are good enough to know that, the 80/20 rule applies in every business. So 20% of somebody's SKUs are driving 80% of their revenues. Well, Amazon, I think, wants to cherry pick the 20% across multiple different product categories. So in an Amazon store, it wouldn't be Amazon electronics. It would be Amazon top 20% products that drive most of the business. So you could go into an Amazon store theoretically, and they're based on their analytics and they know what's selling. You would have high demand, high margin products for Amazon that, if Amazon takes market share away on that top 20% across multiple industries or multiple product categories, that's going to put a tremendous amount of pressure on, local hardware stores and local electronic stores and local comic book stores and local anything else.
Hmm.
So I don't know. It's going to be interesting to see what happens, but what this boils back down to me, is once again the need, at least in for me strategically, in our business, we have to get out of the business of reselling somebody else's product. It's not that we wouldn't offer it or stock a small amount of it if it was strategically synergistic with other products that we had, like we sell wheatgrass growing kits. Well, it makes sense to offer a line of wheatgrass juicers. But historically, we've offered every electric juicer on the market. Well, going forward, we're talking about and are thinking about how and what criteria we're going to use to pare down that offering of juicers, so that we're not offering 92 different juicers. We're offering a good, better, best, and that's it. We're going to offer 3, and we don't expect to sell any of those units other than to the occasional customer that wants the convenience of making the purchase all in one spot from our website. But we don't expect to sell that type of product on Amazon. So the need for us to focus on our brand and expanding our product line within our own brand that we control is paramount.
And it sounds like Amazon's definitely part of the criteria either way. When you're building out your assortment, when you're building in new products in your brand, you're considering whether or not it's going to meet the criteria on Amazon, and you're considering the shipping and all of the aspects when it comes to whether or not it will be competitive if you were to do FBA.
No question.
All right. Well, I thank you so much for your wealth of knowledge and sharing your Amazon experience with us. I'd like to open up to some questions from our attendees today. And we'll go ahead and get those up for you real quick. Let's All right, so one of the questions here is, what 3 categories do you predict the largest growth in on Amazon over the next 5 to 10 years?
Oh boy, I wouldn't even know how to answer that question. You know, I that's hard to know. I know Amazon's pushing grocery really hard. I think they want to be a grocery delivery service and put pressure on local grocery stores. I'm not sure how that works, but that's I know an area they're focused on. But as for what product categories are going to be the growth drivers, boy, that's a great question. I would think, I would think Amazon is going to continue to grow across categories.
Okay, great. And then one of the other questions was, let's see, what do you wish you didn't have to deal with on Amazon?
Oh, that's a great question. I wish I didn't have to deal with knockoffs. That's a constant battle for us. So we're in the seed business. Amazon's policies are very clear that you've got to sell the exact item that's listed. So when we go out and create a listing for our own brand, right? For example, if we sell, hey, we got a pound of certified organic broccoli seed under one of our brands, Handy Pantry, right? It's fairly common for us to go in and see that some other seller has said, I have this product for sale. But we don't have any record of that seller through our resell channels or through our distribution channels. And so I do a test purchase of that product and come to find out it's bagged in a Ziploc baggie in somebody's basement and violates every seed labeling law on the books. And they're selling that at a lower price than my product. And of course, a customer buys that product from the other seller thinking they're going to receive my high quality, legally labeled product. And when they get it, they say, well, this isn't what I ordered, and they leave a negative product review, which damages my brand. And it feels like a constant game of whack-a-mole,
Mm-hmm.
trying to report those violators to Amazon. And I do. I report them aggressively. Um, and eventually they all go away. They're all either taken off or, you know, chased away from Amazon, or asked not to sell against a listing that they don't sell the product through, and warned. I suspect many of them are just booted, because the whole quality of the experience isn't what Amazon wants. So, and I have no compunction. If somebody's going to try to hijack my brand, I'm going to report them.
So
But the
it's
problem
basically
is
up to the brand owner to stay on top of
to stay on
those.
top of it. Yeah. But the problem is, enforcement from Amazon isn't as fast as I would like it to be, A. And B, even when they enforce against a particular violator, there's usually another violator that's jumped on in the meantime. So it's been a constant battle to fight these knockoffs.
Would you say the first step is when you are selling your own brand to register as the brand owner first and foremost so that you have that power?
Absolutely. You do have a little bit of protection afforded by the brand registry, and that's not always 100%, but it's much better than it used to be in the kind of Wild West days before the brand registry. So definitely register in the brand registry. But just because your listing is protected by brand registry doesn't mean that anybody else can't come on and say, yes, I have one of these and I'm offering it for sale. Amazon's rules are that it has to be the same brand, exactly the same product as described in the listing. In other words, you can't say, I've got broccoli seed and put it in a Ziploc bag with a, laser printed label that says broccoli seed on it. It's got to be the same packaging, the same brand, everything. And, you know, even though that violates Amazon's rules, there are sellers out there that are doing it, and I do report them, and Amazon does take action, but again, not nearly as fast as I would hope that Amazon would do it. Um, and that's the one thing I wish that I didn't have to deal with.
Thank you for answering that. I have a question about map pricing. So when you register as a brand owner and you're selling through Amazon, and does Amazon also sell that brand direct and do they follow MAP although you're a registered brand owner on Amazon? Does
Yeah,
that make
so it depends on whether or not you sell to Amazon direct through Vendor Central, which we talked about a little earlier, which is a route I've chosen not to do ever. And because it just didn't pencil. It gives Amazon such a huge percentage of the margin compared to what I would get selling through FBA. So I prefer to sell through FBA. The other thing is, when Amazon is selling a product, your product isn't protected by the brand registry. Amazon is going to list that product as they see fit. They control the listing. And then the last piece of the puzzle is Amazon typically doesn't abide by MAP pricing. So I've got lots and lots of cases where, like back in the good old days, right? 2008, 2009, 2010, I would sell electric juicers. I mean, I had days where I'd sell 30, 40, 50, 60 juicers in a single day on Amazon. And those were, man, it was great. But today, if I sell a juicer a week, I'm lucky. And part of that is because not only are so many sellers out there competing, but even in the case of certain brand names of juicers that I've resold for years, a lot of those juicers have MAP pricing policy where you can't advertise a product lower than a certain price point. Well, I can see that Amazon, the listing that is for sale by Amazon is listed for much lower than MAP pricing, And Amazon has chosen not to abide by MAP pricing. And if that means that the seller, the manufacturer, decides they're not going to sell to Amazon anymore, I think Amazon's attitude is so be it. But as it turns out, I think there's a very, very, very large percentage of manufacturers with MAP pricing policies that refuse to enforce that policy on certain of their resellers. And the two in question really are Amazon and Costco.
So it's
Because I,
definitely something to consider when you are selling your own brand, whether or not you want to also allow Amazon to sell direct as well.
yeah, and again, I think there's probably valid arguments in certain cases why somebody would think it's the best approach to sell the product to Amazon and let Amazon resell it, as opposed to doing an FBA or an FBM approach. But I've never chosen to go that route. I've always
We have
preferred more control.
Okay, great. Thank you. That does make sense. We have one last question. It's FBA related, and they're asking if you want to skip FBA, what are some other recommendations as far as shipping options that you would recommend?
In terms of not sending in a product through FBA,
Yes, and keeping that competitive edge without FBA.
well, certainly price your products so that shipping is built in. Offer free shipping on your products through Amazon. But even with free shipping, the Amazon tags in their search results whether a product is Prime eligible not, right? I've been a Prime subscriber for a lot of years, and just my own behavior buying from Amazon. If if it comes down to two fairly similar listings, one offers Prime shipping and the other doesn't, guess which one I click on?
Hmm.
And I think I'm not alone in any measure of that. I mean, I cannot personally imagine a situation where I would not be trying to send products into FBA and expand my FBA offering.
If you
It's
can
just,
guarantee the overnight or expedited shipping in your shipping requirements on your product that you're listing, will that not show as Prime eligible?
it won't. It only shows us there's three situations where a product, at least as far as I know, three situations where a product will show as Prime eligible. Number one, it's fulfilled by Amazon. Number two, it's sold directly by Amazon. Or number three, it's sold by what Amazon calls seller fulfilled Prime, which is a relatively new program, which allows a seller to say, hey, I'm going to fulfill it, but I'm also going to offer Prime. But that's complex because you still have to guarantee that the product is going to arrive in 2 days, right? So I happen to be in Utah, and if somebody in New York orders from me, I got to make sure that product arrives to that customer in 2 days from the time they place the order, which means for seller fulfill Prime, if the order comes in today before, say, 3 o'clock in the afternoon, I got to ship it out today, and I got to make sure that the customer in New York receives it within 2 days, which means I've got to pay for expedited shipping, and I'm betting that I can't turn a profit that way. I can only
Right.
turn a
So the
profit for people geographically close to me.
so the retailers are definitely going to want to take into consideration all of the different Prime shipping options, but also consider the requirements and the cost that will come with that.
Right.
Well, I just want to thank everyone for your questions. We do have quite a bit more as far as questions, but we'll have to get to you via email on answers for those. We just have a few minutes left, so I wanted to let everyone know that we recently published a white paper on the subject, and we invite you to go to the link here and pick that up as a reference to get more details about the topics that we discussed today. And if you're interested in learning more about DOBA, we also invite you to visit us using this link here to see what DOBA has to offer. You can also request a personalized demo of our platform via this link. And again, thank you very much, Parker, for all of your insight and your expertise. And then again, if anyone wants more information on DOBA, just follow us on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, and LinkedIn to get more great content, announcements, and information about upcoming webinars.
Michelle, it was my pleasure. Thank you so much.
You have a great day.